Hey, everybody, we are live. The nation of France and other Western nations are telling their citizens to flee Iran, evacuate immediately. And that's because it looks like there may be some shooting going on there sometime very, very soon. Now, I would imagine that IRGC commanders and top key leaders in the government of Iran may very soon be deciding to call in sick, if not calling in dead, because of hellfire missiles raining down on Iran from U.S. Ships and ground based stations all around the Middle East. The reason for that is because of a new report that has come out from an organization called the National Council of Resistance of Iran. And you might say, like, wait, is that is that an Iranian news source? Well, it's Iranian dissidents. These are Iranians who are against the regime, and they just released a pretty amazing report which confirms what President Trump has been saying all along about how the Iranians are supervising the Houthis' political and military affairs. So Iran, with its many proxy forces around the region, has been getting its head handed to it. At least the proxy forces have, and the Houthis are really the last functional proxy force Iran has left. Up until this point during the war, the Iranians have had a ship offshore of Yemen that's been assisting the Houthis in targeting shipping going through the region, the sea lanes of the region. That ship mysteriously disappeared about a week ago, and probably because it would be now sitting on the bottom, if it hadn't taken off. As you know, President Trump made it very clear that if the Houthis continue to fire tubular complaints at Israel, the United States would consider that to be an attack from Iran and would react accordingly. We have seen in recent days American uh, drones, surveillance drones, flying over Iran and over important sites in Iran, and have been essentially preparing target packages for taking out important things inside Iran. Now, we obviously have contingency exercises that we've planned, years ago on what we would want to bomb if we needed to bomb Iran. But those things go stale pretty quick and they need to be updated. So it's not as simple as just pointing a bunch of B-2 bombers at Iran and saying, "Go get them, boys." They're, in order to actually have some effect, they need to do a lot of surveillance. They need to comb through millions of images, and they need to figure out how and when and what to strike. When they figure out the what, then they got to figure out the how. And it's, again, very complex operations, a lot of moving parts. They've got to have refueling tankers in the air. They've got to coordinate with other nations in the region, because we're going to have to probably cross over territory that is not Iranian in order to make these strikes. And that normally is going to take some sort of deconfliction, right? I mean, even if it's a friendly nation like Jordan or something like that, we're going to have to deconflict with them so that they don't see a bunch of jets and not know what they are flying over their territory. That doesn't always happen. I know Israel has not uh, bothered to deconflict with, like, Syria, for example, for obvious reasons. Because deconflicting with Syria is letting the enemy know what's going on, right? So Today I'm gonna talk about very quickly. I'm coming to you from Panama City, Panama, and I've got a lot to do today. I'm waiting for a group of people to show up here. Actually, they're on the ground now. I'm just waiting for the call to go do some work with my real job for Newsmax. But in the meantime, I wanted to get this out because over the last 24 hours, we have seen Israelis running for their shelters. There have been several missile and rocket alerts across Israel. Millions of Israelis have had to go to their shelters. They've had something like 40 people injured. I don't know. I mean, I guess people get panicky and they just sprint down the stairs and then trip and, go rolling down the stairs or something like that, because it seems like every time there's a rocket alert, we hear about injuries for people running to the shelters. Now, I guess, you need to be careful. If you're running for the shelter, you're probably more likely to get injured running down the stairs than you are from a missile. And I want to point out that when you, Mama Marissa says, that'd be me. I want to point out that if you're watching the Shofar app and you see these missile attacks, thank you, William, that are coming in and they're covering most of Israel, that doesn't mean that there's hundreds of missiles coming in. It's probably just one. It just means that Israel is acting out of an abundance of caution to warn people in the area where it might land, because what that says is that the missile is still pretty far away and they're not really sure where it's going to hit. So they're just advising a large area to be prepared. And as it turns out, the missiles that the Houthis have fired have been shot down before they actually entered Israeli airspace. However, there was also a missile or some rockets that were fired out of Gaza, which is the first time in months that has happened, several months. The people along the Gaza Strip in the kibbutzim, the agricultural area along the Gaza Strip in Israel, have been put on high alert. They've been told to stay close to their bunkers and be prepared to take shelter. Apparently, the Israelis uncovered another plot. There were a bunch of Hamas operatives that were planning another October 7th style incursion into Israel. And the reason that the ceasefire ended when it did and Israel started bombing when it did was because they were thwarting that potential incursion into Israel. Can you imagine? After 15 years of war, after, by their own count, 48,000, actually now they're talking like 61,000 people killed uh, inside Gaza, and something like, you know, 2,000 people killed during the war in Israel. It's pretty one-sided, you know. I mean, a lot more people have died in Gaza. And Hamas is still looking to do it again. They are still wanting to go into Israel and murder civilians. Jessica Noreen says 60,000 killed. Well, the Gaza run, the Hamas run Gaza Health Ministry came out a few days ago. This is before the fighting started again, and said that they were updating their count of the number of people dead from like 48,000 to 60 something thousand, because they said, well, we've decided there's a lot of people that are buried under the rubble. There's no way to count accurately. And since the fighting has started again, we've seen the Gaza Health Ministry go back to their very dubious counting, which is, Israel dropped bombs last night on Gaza, and the Gaza Health Ministry immediately says, I mean, within hours says, oh yeah, there were, 470 people killed and 3/4 of them were women and children. That's what they always say. Oh, and none of them were Hamas fighters. So far, according to the Gaza Run Health Ministry, All 60-something thousand of those people killed were all innocent civilians. There were no Gaza fighters anywhere killed, no Hamas anywhere taken out. All of that is shown to be a lie by the video that Israel puts out on a daily basis. I belong to some WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups by the IDF where they're putting out gun camera footage showing them taking out Hamas operatives. I mean, these are not innocent civilians. They're people running around with guns. And then they get smoked on camera. But the Gaza Health Ministry says that those were all women and children, and none of them were Hamas fighters. So we've known for a long time you cannot believe anything that comes out of the Gaza Health Ministry. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of Hamas. And they use those numbers as information war to try to garner support for their cause. And they have a whole bunch of mainstream media who are willingly lining up to participate by blaming Israel for everything that's gone wrong. Remember. I'm going to keep saying this every time I talk about this. It doesn't matter how many people die in Gaza. Every single death that dies in Gaza, A, is a terrible tragedy, and it didn't have to happen, and B, is 100% the fault of Hamas. Because, and if I was Benjamin Netanyahu, my speeches would have been very, very simple to give for the last 15 months, because every speech would have simply been 3 words. I would stand up at the microphone and I would say, release the hostages, and then turn around and walk away and just keep bombing. Just keep dropping ordnance on Gaza to the point where until they just beg you to stop. And whenever somebody stuck a microphone in my face, what about all the children you're killing in Gaza? I would just say, release the hostages and turn around and walk away. And let people know. I mean, all this rhetoric actually gets in the way of the message. And that needs to be the message. Release the hostages. Israel is offering a $5 million bounty for people to turn in hostages, and nobody in Gaza has stepped forward to claim that bounty yet. Release the hostages. Keep bombing. Crank it up a notch. The UN passes another stupid resolution to condemn Israel. Release the hostages. Step it up a notch. Bomb some more. Bulldoze everything in sight until we get our hostages back. That's all you have to do. Now, President Trump is much more on board with that kind of messaging. And although he's prone to overstatement, let's say, that's okay. It looks like the United States will very soon be dropping ordnance on Iran. Iran, for its part, doesn't want that to happen. They are trying to tell the Houthis to, hey, back off a little bit. And they actually released a hostage that they were holding, a French woman they've been holding for about 2 years at the behest of the French ambassador. The French government, like I said, came out and said, put out a message to all of its citizens who happen to make the mistake of being in Iran right now to evacuate immediately. That means things are about to get skippy inside Iran. The United States has plenty of assets in the region. There have been rumors that the United States was sending more ships to the region, but I have not seen any credible news that is happening. I think that's fake news. I don't know that we need more ships in the region. We've got, I think, 2 aircraft carriers at least there now. The Eisenhower and the Truman. For their part, the Houthis, uh, they fired a multi-million-dollar ballistic missile at Iran. I mean, sorry, at Israel yesterday. It was shot down over Saudi Arabia, never made it into Israel airspace. The Houthi Baghdad Bob kind of guy got up on the with his stupid red pizza hat and was like, "We fired a missile and it accomplished our objectives." What, of making you look incompetent? Is that your objective? The the Houthis, like I said, continue to make to self parody. It's hard to even find ways to make fun of the Houthis because they just do such a good job of it themselves. I mean, they're just so bad. President Trump pointed this out in a True Social post he made yesterday that, that's it's just so one-sided. It's almost just not even fair. When we go up against the Houthis, I mean, we just bomb them into oblivion, and it's such a short trip for them from where they are in their normal lives to being bombed into oblivion. They hardly notice. I mean, life sucks so bad in Yemen that people are like, yeah, bombing, whatever. Oh, we're going to take out all their electricity. People are like, electricity, what's that? If we bombed all their warehouses, that those people are used to eating nothing but dirt usually anyway. I mean, it is just a hellscape in Yemen. It's one of the worst places on planet Earth. And the Houthis are, they also, that same Baghdad Bob guy came out and claimed to have again struck the Harry Truman aircraft carrier from the United States. According to the Houthis' rhetoric, they have sunk the Harry Truman about 9 times now. The last time that they claimed to have struck the Harry Truman, the U.S. Pentagon spokesman said that they literally missed by over 100 miles. Somebody asked him, like, did the Harry Truman come under fire from the Houthis? And he said, realistically, it's hard to tell because they missed by so far. We're not even sure what they're aiming at. We have no idea. I mean, they're just an absolute clown show down there. And so there's that. So the United States is going to continue to strike at the Houthis, but it looks like we are preparing and may very soon be striking at Iran proper. And as I said yesterday, we have to. We've got to strike Iran now because President Trump laid the cards on the table. He said, if the Houthis strike at Israel again, we will consider that to be a strike, an aggression from Iran directly, and we will respond accordingly. If he does not respond accordingly, then he's going to look weak. He has to. So I expect it to happen. Gerald is asking, how are the Houthis supplied by sea? No, if you look at a map, yes, they are supplied by sea. They're also supplied over land. We have actually picked up ships, Iranian ships on their way to Yemen with uh, weapons on them in the past. Hey, MM, it's good to see you, Mike. How are you? Can I host you in Nigeria? Bright Michael says, I've been to Nigeria before. I'm not, what would you like to host me for? There are a whole bunch of Nigerian Yahoo boys who steal my photographs on a regular basis and use them to scam women out of money all around the world. So I am all over Nigeria, apparently, because there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of fake accounts using my photographs trying to ask for money from people around the internet. I hear from women every week about these Nigerian scammers that are uh, doing this. Oh, somebody tagged. Did you do that? Did you tag? Uh, were you able to tag? Oh, cool. Do you think the U.S. will create naval relations with India since it's close enough to keep them? India is not super friendly to the United States right now. I was planning a trip to India last year, and an Indian friend of mine called me and said, "Don't go." Said the Indian government is very strict, and you just may well end up in jail if you go there as a journalist. The Indian government is not friendly to the United States. They're more friendly to Russia and China than they are to the U.S. They try very hard to kind of straddle that fence, but they're much more aligned with Russia at this point. Somebody asked, "Did Trump give Iran 2 months?" Uh, I didn't see that. I didn't see where he gave him 2 months. Send me a link if there's a place where he gave them 2 months. So it's not only in the Middle East where they're preparing for war. I wanted to talk for a moment about what's happening in Turkey, because President Erdogan has been he's got imperial ambitions, just like President Putin does, of expanding the new Ottoman Empire across the Middle East and becoming the new caliphate. President Erdogan is full on Islamic State, Muslim Brotherhood, Sunni extremist. He has turned Turkey into a very extremist country, and he has been responsible for all of the mayhem and shenanigans that have gone on in Syria over the past 3 or 4 months, and long before. We've heard a lot about the fighting between HTS, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham terrorists that now lead Syria, and the Alawites and Hezbollah and the Lebanese army that has happened along that border. I've talked about that in recent days. But what we have not heard a lot about is the ongoing fighting between the Turkish military and their proxy forces in northern Syria and the Kurds. The Kurds, including Kurdish civilians, have been mercilessly bombed by Turkey. We have evidence of them bombing convoys of ambulances, doctors, uh, hospitals, things like that. Turkey is absolutely brutal in their persecution of the Kurds, even though the one portion of the Kurds who actually was fighting, was highly against Turkey, the PKK, has disbanded and has laid down their arms. Turkey's like, yeah, that's not good enough. All the Kurds have to disappear. And so they have been, and President Trump hasn't said anything about that. I wish he would. President Trump seems to like Erdogan because he likes strongman dictators, I guess. He seems to be partial to guys with gigantic egos who want to take over the world. And so he has not been very critical of Turkey. Even in his first term, he wasn't. And so far in his second term, he has taken steps inside Syria to support Turkey in what they're doing. So that's not great for the Kurds, especially the Kurds being our best friends in the region other than the Israelis. But in the last few days, something happened. The Turks, they love to arrest people who disagree with them. And the mayor of Istanbul had apparently come out as something of an opposition figure and was saying things against Erdogan. Erdogan had him arrested and thrown in jail. And that sparked huge uprisings across Turkey that are threatening to overthrow Erdogan. Now, I don't think that will happen. I do not think Erdogan will actually be overthrown because uh, Erdogan, the last time this happened, this is not the first time that there's been a coup attempt or an uprising against Erdogan's government. The last time it happened, he brutally cracked down on the dissidents. He threw tens of thousands of people in jail. There were a lot of extrajudicial killings and torture and all sorts of crazy stuff that was happening. And I would venture to say we will see more of the same in this case. Erdogan still has a pretty firm grip on power, and he will bring that power to bear against anybody who opposes him inside or outside of Turkey. So I don't think it's likely that Erdogan will be overthrown. If he does, things get a lot more complicated in the region, that's for sure. There are, I'm told, elections coming up in Turkey in November of this year, and apparently Erdogan cannot run again. And so he is looking to replace himself with a puppet that he can control, sort of a proxy government. And that's part of what the internal problems are with Turkey right now. So I just wanted to touch on that. Question: what is the difference between what U.S. is doing and declaring war? This is a very good point. The United States has not actually declared war on anybody since like World War II. Everything since then has been called a police action or emergency deployment or something like that. It takes Congress to declare war. And there are some uh, Republicans in the US Congress who are pushing for uh, a new law that would require the president to actually declare war before we can say support militarily any country or organization. It would require a declaration of war before we can send troops anywhere. Denise is asking where I'm at, where I am. I'm in a hotel room in Panama City, downtown Panama City. That's the city back behind me over there. Oh, it looks like it might rain. That'd be good. I am down here because I'm doing some work for Newsmax today. Thank you very much for the, I can't read that, something life. Appreciate that. Folks, we got more than 4,000 people online right now, and only like 1,000 likes. So please go hit the like button. I always forget unless somebody reminds me. So here's your reminder. Please, just while we're talking, you can go find that like button. It doesn't cost you anything. It's not going to send you an email or anything like that. Just hit that like button. And that tells the algorithm on YouTube to show this content to more people that have never seen it before. And if you are here for the first time, uh, I'm Chuck Holton, and I'm a former Army Ranger who was also a stockbroker for 10 years and flew helicopters in the National Guard while I was in college. I have been a war correspondent specializing in wars and disasters for more than 20 years around the globe. I go to about 25 countries a year. I don't get to spend a lot of time in the good old US of A anymore, although I still maintain a farm in West Virginia. And I am uh, bringing you daily updates here on YouTube of things that are going on in wars around the globe, trying to go and report from on the ground there to bring you the ground truth of what's happening. Now, it's funny to me because, of course, YouTube being YouTube, you get a lot of people, you always get a lot of criticism, no matter what you do. I mean, you just no way to avoid it on YouTube. And one of the things that just cracks me up is, uh, if I'm talking about someplace I've never been and never studied, then I'm probably not going to really know what I'm talking about. And there are plenty of people out there like that. If you want to hear about conflicts, wars, and disasters around the globe from people that don't know what they're talking about, you can go to listen to guys like Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor and people like that just, I mean, they've been so wrong. Like if you actually follow them and go listen to their reporting, which I do, I keep up with these guys. For the last 3-4 years, they have been just so spectacularly wrong consistently. But part of it is, I believe, they're on the payroll of nefarious factors like the Russians. But, so I try to actually go to the places where things are happening. I go to I'm traveling. I spend 200 nights a year in hotels. Okay. I get 30 to 45 days a year in my own bed. Right? Hey, thank you, Julie. That's very kind of you. I appreciate all those donations. We're using those to help people wherever I go. We try to take your donations, and then when I run into people that are having their lives devastated by war and disaster, we help them out, and that way you can help them more directly. But so I go there and I visit the places on the ground, and I get the ground truth from those places. I've spent more than 6 months in Ukraine. I've spent more than 6 months now in the war, during the war in Israel. And I come and I bring you what I'm learning on the ground. And then I get people who are like, "Oh, well, you're biased because you're there, so you're obviously biased." Like, what? I can't win, man. If I don't go, then I don't know what I'm talking about. If I do go and I know what I'm talking about, then I'm biased because I'm saying something that maybe disagrees with your political stripe or whatever. You just can't win on YouTube. So I don't bother. I don't bother trying to win. And if I haven't offended you yet, just stick around. I'll get around to you. Don't worry. Uh, Now, is this happening now? Candy asks. So people that are coming on, they're just getting here. Uh, Israel has been under rocket alerts for the last, I mean, off and on over the last 24 hours. Those rocket alerts are the first time that Israel has had to go to their shelters in many months, probably 4 months. And they have come from two different places. There have been a ballistic missile that was fired out of Yemen, and some rockets that were fired out of Gaza. Now, I think one or two of those rockets out of Gaza was shot down, and the other ones landed in open areas. They didn't hurt anybody. Nobody was hurt. But that is significant that Hamas still has the capability to fire rockets out of Gaza. That's just mind-boggling. But this uh, ceasefire that they've had for the last 9 weeks has given Hamas time to go find whatever rockets they had left, to set them up, to get them prepared, to set up the launchers and get them all ready. So I don't think it's a surprise. I think we should expect to see more rockets flying out of Gaza as the fighting ramps up again. The actual danger to the Israeli people is fairly low because the rockets that they are firing are not high-tech rockets. Many of them are literally made out of light poles and water pipes that they cut up with a hacksaw and then fashioned into rockets. So I mean, they're dangerous in that they've got explosives in them and they're flying toward Israel, but Israel is very well prepared to defend against those things in the places that are most at risk. People are very used to going to shelters, but wouldn't it be nice if they could live their lives without having to worry about going to shelters, without having to teach their children to duck and cover or run for the bunker every time the siren goes off? The This is the thing that the Israelis are done with, absolutely done with. And they are supporting, by and large, the Israeli Defense Forces as they go back into Gaza now with troops on the ground. There are troops from the IDF operating in the south, in the center, and in the north of Gaza. And there will be fighting in Gaza more intense than what they have seen so far in the entire war. Israel is dropping lots of ordnance on Gaza right now. But the more interesting thing to me is what's going to happen in Yemen and in Iran. Because if Western countries are advising any citizens they have that happen to be in Iran to clock out, head for the border, get out of Iran immediately, that means that they expect, their intelligence services expect that there will be violence uh, in Iran very soon. There will be ordnance dropping from American planes on Iran very, very soon, maybe in the next 24 hours. I don't know. Raphael says, I thought you were a Trump supporter, so I'm shocked at your comment about Trump liking wannabe dictators. Are you or are you not a Trump supporter? I am a Trump supporter, but I am not a sycophant. And while I am very glad that President Trump is our president, I will not hesitate to speak the truth about what President Trump is doing. And if he's doing things that are immoral, dishonest, or, in my opinion, wrong, I will say that. If President Trump is lying in public to the American people, as he did here with this issue here in Panama, I will say so. President Trump, let me be very, very clear with you. I support President Trump, but President Trump lied and continues to lie to the American people about what's going on here in Panama. He continues to say that 38,000 Americans lost their lives building the canal. That is a lie. 350 Americans lost their lives building the canal. The United States, during the time the US was building the canal, 5,700 people total lost their lives. Only 350 of those were Americans. There was never 38,000 people that died. President Trump has said that the United States spends $3.5 billion a year maintaining the Panama Canal. That is a lie. That is not true. And so either President Trump is just incorrect and doesn't have anybody around him who's smart enough or brave enough to say, President Trump, that was wrong. Or he knows it's a lie and it is just something he wants to continue doing because he knows it riles up his base. Well, I would very highly recommend that you go to chuckholton.com and read the article that I posted today titled Live Not by Lies. And it's based on Alexander Solzhenitsyn's essay to the people of the Soviet Union in 1974 as he was uh, being banished from the Soviet Union and exiled to the West. His last essay to the people of the Soviet Union was that the only way the Soviet Union can survive is by everybody lying. And if we just choose not to participate in the lies and not bend our knee to it, then the Soviet Union will not survive. Thank you, Susan. And I adapted that essay to America in 2025. For the last 4 years, the Biden administration has tried to force us to lie about things. They've asked us to lie about gender, things as simple as male and female. They've asked us to lie about so much. And we have been very vociferously against that over the last 4 years. Well, guess what? I'm not about to exchange one group of lies for another. And so I want a president who tells the truth. And so I'm going to applaud the president for everything he does that's right. And I'm going to call out the president for anything he does that is based on a lie. Personally, folks, if that bothers you, then you're not going to want to be a part of this, of the hot zone. You're not going to be happy here because I will not bow the knee to President Trump. He is my president, and I'm glad that he is. But he's not my Messiah, and I only bow to truth with a capital T. I don't bow to tribalism and never will. Because I spend most of my time outside the United States, sometimes it's easier for me to notice those kinds of things when I see them happening in the United States. Somebody asks, why do you think Trump would lie about Panama? Well, I'm not going to pretend to know what's in President Trump's head. I think that President Trump's negotiating style is to make very wild claims, very, very large claims. That's the art of the deal to him. And then whatever he can get, that pushes the conversation much closer to a good deal for him and for America. I understand that. But, and as my good friend, I have a good friend, I read yesterday his letter to me on the Hot Zone live that I did yesterday. I have a good friend who's a Zonian from here in the United States. There was a subculture of people, there still is, who were born and grew up in the Canal Zone when it belonged to the United States. And those Zonians, uh, they loved it here, and they still do. Most of them, many of them still live here. They are American citizens who lived in the part of America that was known as the Canal Zone before it was given back to the Panamanians. And by and large, they were very, very against the Canal Zone being given back to Panama. And most of them to this day would love to see Panama come under the control of the United States again. But he wrote me a letter and said, nobody would love to see the United States take over the Panama Canal more than me. But how can I support a president who accomplishes that very worthy goal by lies? I can't. I can't bring myself to do it. So there are a lot of people like that out there. And the crazy thing is, there's no need for President Trump to lie about the Panama Canal. There are plenty of reasons, very logical, very true reasons that he could make to make the argument to take back control of the canal. But he's not making those arguments. He's making wild claims that make a bunch of people that support him, a bunch of his, cultists in America go, yeah, America, we lost 38,000 Americans building the canal. No, you didn't. And there's no reason for that. It's just, and look, I would rather take a loss on something with God's blessing than take a win on something without God's blessing. And I think if we lie to get what we want, then we are foregoing God's blessing in that. Because the Bible says in Proverbs 14:34, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. So I want to see my leaders live with righteousness, live by righteousness. And if they do that, then America will always be better off, even if it costs us something in the end. Okay, I'm stepping off my high horse about that. I've certainly beat that one to death. Denise asks, why is Chuck going to Guam? Well, about 80 years ago, as we speak, there was a battle raging on the island of Iwo Jima in World War II. It's one of the most iconic battles in American history. This is the year of the 80th anniversary of that. Since the war ended, the United States had a peace treaty with Japan, and a part of that treaty allows the U.S. to go to Iwo Jima one day each year in order to honor our dead. See, Iwo Jima today is a Japanese military base, and the Japanese really don't like the United States, a bunch of U.S. citizens like traipsing around on their military base. But because of the treaty, they allow us to go out there one day a year. About 8 years ago, I got to visit Iwo Jima on that day, and it's amazing. But they're saying that this year may be the last year ever for Americans to be able to go to Iwo Jima, because the treaty stated apparently that you can only go, we're only allowed that one day a year until there are no more survivors of the battle. Currently, there are 7 survivors left who participated in the Battle of Iwo Jima. They're all over 100 years old, and they're planning to be there in Guam and on Iwo Jima for the commemoration of the battle. So I am going to interview those guys, and I will bring you the story of what I see and what I hear, and you'll get to hear from the survivors of the battle. It'll be amazing. It's going to be an incredible trip. We're also going to go to Saipan and to Tinian and make some reports there about the hundreds of millions of dollars that the United States is investing in those islands, which also have a long history with the United States. Tinian was the airstrip from which the Enola Gay took off to bomb Hiroshima. And now it's being refurbished into an airstrip to potentially bomb China if we have to go to war with China, which a lot of people are thinking we will in about 2027. So I'm going to go to Tinian I'm taking my wonderful wife with me. And between now and then, tomorrow we're going to fly to New York, and I'll be speaking in Olean, New York. I think that's how you say that, at a church there for a men's uh, event on Saturday, and then I'll be speaking at their church on Sunday, and then leaving directly from there to go to Guam. Recap of the title. Okay, if you want a recap of the title is that people are being, citizens of the West are being advised by their governments to evacuate Iran immediately. And that's because the United States is very likely about to start bombing Iran for the first time ever, I would say. I mean, just keep in mind that if we bomb Iran, that's something we've never done before. And so, um, please speak on Trump putting tariffs on Canada. That's not a war. The Canadians are the nice North Americans. That's a strategy for sure. And I'm going to defer to Trump and his experts. I mean, if Trump is talking about getting rid of the IRS and turning it into the ERS, the External Revenue Service, and talking about the U.S. government collecting its revenue by tariffs instead of taxes and getting rid of the taxes, I would be all for it. I would be very happy. But I highly doubt that they're going to get rid of all taxes and replace them with tariffs. It'd be great if he did, but that's all I'll say about that. I'm not American, but I feel like the Russia is portrayed as the world enemy. Would you mind explaining to me why that war seems like Syria to me, where there are no good sides? A lot of people feel that way. A lot of people have I would say, an outdated understanding of the corruption problem in Ukraine. If you talk to people in Ukraine, again, I've spent more than 6 months there during the war. What they will tell you is that, yes, Ukraine was a spectacularly corrupt country after the fall of the Soviet Union because the government just evaporated from one day to the next. And so it was every man for himself. And so corruption became endemic in the politics of Ukraine. And many Ukrainians will tell you that if you wanted to get your kid on the swim team in Ukraine, you would have to bribe the coach in order to get him on the swim team. Didn't matter about his abilities or what have you. And they were very, very tired of that. And so they elected a Trump-like figure who was not a politician, he was an actor, to get rid of the corruption. That guy's name was Volodymyr Zelensky. Volodymyr Zelensky has taken many steps that you can point to wipe out the corruption inside Ukraine. Now, is it all gone? No, it's not. There's still corruption there. Is it the most corrupt country on planet Earth? Not by a long shot. It's nowhere near as corrupt as Russia itself. No, I mean, seriously, like I said, I've lived there, okay? And I've been to Russia too. Russia is far more corrupt than Ukraine is today. Just like many people, if you mention the country Colombia, they go, I'm not going to Colombia. I mean, you got like Pablo Escobar and all those people down there, all the drug killings and everything. Colombia is safer than Panama from an actual statistical point of view now, because the danger that everybody remembers about Colombia, that passed a long time ago. And nations change, okay? So I don't know about good side versus bad side, but what I can tell you is Ukraine did not attack anybody. Ukraine, or NATO for that matter, never attacked Russia. Russia tried to create propaganda that Ukraine was, shelling Donetsk and Luhansk. Well, Donetsk and Luhansk are Ukraine, first of all. Secondly, I was there when Russia was reporting that Ukraine was bombing them, and there was no bombing, at least not from the Ukrainian side. There was some bombing of Russians bombing the Ukrainian side. So because Ukraine is not the aggressor, then I certainly believe that Russia is the bad guy in this situation. And I don't blame that on the Russian people per se. The Russian people, by and large, don't want war. Millions of them have fled Russia and rather than go fight in Ukraine. Kudos to them for that. But Ukraine is literally fighting for its survival. Russia, if President Trump says, "I just want the killing to stop," well, that's nice. But if the killing stops by Ukraine ceasing to exist as a country, I would venture to say that that's not an acceptable outcome to Ukraine. The killing can stop today if Russia stops killing people and just leaves. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ceases to exist. If you were Ukrainian, what would you want? If you were Ukrainian, or if you could somehow imagine this happening in the United States, if the United States was under existential threat, would you fight for America? Or would you be like, no, I just want the killing to stop, so we're going to give up? Believe me, if Ukraine gives up, the killing will not stop. It just won't be as visible because Russia has very clearly created lots of mayhem and death and destruction in the areas that they have controlled inside Ukraine. I've spoken to people who have escaped that, and it's horrific. They literally bring in trucks with crematoriums on the back of the truck, little mobile crematoriums, and they just start throwing people in the back of these trucks. I've talked to people who were pressed into service by the Russian military to go grab bodies and throw them in these crematoriums so that there's no evidence of them ever existing. This is happening in places like Mariupol. There are satellite imagery of mass graves in places like Mariupol. They've found mass graves in places like Irpin and Bucha and elsewhere. Ukraine did not attack Russia. So if I always just try to approach these things. Uh, Sandy says, even Zelensky says Nazis were terrorizing Donbass and Luhansk. No, Zelensky did not say that. And no, the Nazis were not attacking Donetsk and Luhansk. I was there. I mean, like I said, is this one of those situations where, oh, because I was there, I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm too close to the situation. I was there. I spoke to people in Donetsk and Luhansk before the war started. And I asked them, are you being persecuted? I did not find anyone who said, yes, the Ukrainian Nazis are persecuting us. I've spent months searching for Nazis or white supremacists or anybody that could theoretically be considered a Nazi in Ukraine. I've yet to find any. There are plenty of Nazis inside Russia, white supremacists and crazy people like that, skinheads. The thing is, when Russia calls Ukrainians Nazis, they mean something different than we do. For Russians, the term Nazi is anybody who opposes Russia. And so by that definition, yes, everyone in Ukraine is a Nazi. But they're not Nazis in the way you and I think of them, as in the, Sieg Heil, white supremacists or anything. You're not going to find those people down there. They're all white, for one thing. Okay, folks, I'm going to have to run because I've got some real work I've got to do here with Newsmax today. So I don't want to miss out on that. I'm going to be traveling for the next few days. I will try to come on and do a live if there's breaking news from wherever I happen to be. Okay, question. Why is it okay for Zelensky to refuse to pay the U.S. back for the hundreds of billions of aid? Well, I have not seen Zelensky refusing to pay the U.S. back. Do the Ukrainians still support Zelensky as much as they did? Not as much as they did at the beginning of the war. At the beginning of the war, Zelensky's favorability rating was 91%. So they were very much in favor of Zelensky. Now it's about 60%. It's actually gotten a bump since President Trump started attacking Zelensky. It's even gotten a bump in America since President Trump started attacking Zelensky. More Americans support Zelensky today than they did before President Trump started attacking him, according to a poll that I saw recently. Now, President Zelensky said he was willing to sign a deal for minerals to help the United States recoup some of its costs in Ukraine. The problem was he wanted some, like, well, are you going to defend us? Are you going to, because all it would take to stop this war would be for the United States to say, we will defend Ukraine if Russia keeps attacking. And Russia would stop attacking. Russia cannot and will not go to war with the United States. They know it. That's just not possible. First of all, Russia's military is far too weak to take on NATO, much less just the United States. The Texas National Guard could defeat the Russian military as it stands right now. And everybody says, well, what about their nukes? Well, Russia does have nukes, but the way nuclear bombs work is that if you use one, everyone uses theirs against you. That's the whole point of nukes and mutually assured destruction. Russia knows that. We have made it very clear to Russia, if they use a nuke in any way, tactical or strategic, we will use nukes against Russia. So there's that. So Russia does not want to fight America. Unfortunately for us, Russia is winning the information war in America, and they're doing it with a lot of help from conservatives, which makes me sad. So Zelensky doesn't have a problem with the U.S. returning some of its investment. As a matter of fact, they are talking now about a deal for the United States to help build this distributed power network I've been talking about inside Ukraine. So rather than Ukraine has had like 10 or 15 different massive thermal electric generation plants around their country that have generated the majority of their electricity. And those are dangerous because they can be bombed. They're very big targets. They're very hard to fix. Most of them were built in just after World War II. You have to fabricate parts for them. There's no spare parts. Keeping those things running is a nightmare. I've been inside them. It's like a car engine 10 stories tall. It's just unbelievable how huge these things are. And they get bombed, and then Ukraine's like, it's not worth rebuilding it because if we rebuild it, they'll just bomb it again. So what they're doing is they're building a lot, like tons of very small, like 2-megawatt reactors, 3-megawatt power generation plants, natural gas powered, all around Ukraine. And they're networking them together like a computer network. They have the natural gas. They can run them all. They've promised to any investor from the West that wants to come and build one of these things, we will buy 100% of the power that you output for perpetuity. So it's a guaranteed return on your investment. They're trying to attract investors. Well, President Trump said maybe the United States wants to build some of these for you guys and run them at a profit. And Ukraine said, please, absolutely. I know the guy in charge of Ukrenergo, the Ukrainian energy company. He's a friend of mine. And he's like, we would love it if the United States would come and build these power plants. And they could make money hand over fist on these things for a long, long time to come. So maybe we will see that happen. And that would be a very good thing. If Trump does that, man, that'd be the smartest thing Trump has done in a while. That'd be really, really smart. It'd be a good investment for America, and it'd be great for Ukraine, and it would help them defeat Russia, which is all in our best interest. All of those things are in our best interest. Okay, folks, so again, let me just encourage you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not. It's amazing to me when I look at the analytics that only 40% of you are actually subscribed. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to the channel here, but it does definitely help the channel get out to more people. So please help us. Do me a favor. Please just hit that subscribe button. I won't spam you, I promise. And you can go to chuckholton.com and you can get summaries of each day's live in writing that you can share with your friends, or you can go through and you can, talk about what's going on. And then if you want to, you can support my channel over there. And that helps us be more independent of YouTube. And that's always a good thing. We use that to help people. Rain Tarrant says, I subscribed and worth it. Thank you very much for that subscription. I really appreciate it. We are about to release my next documentary, and it's really good. You're going to love it. You're really going to like it. And it's about a couple that lives up in the mountains of Armenia in the middle of nowhere, 7,000 feet above sea level. And they're the last two people in the village where they live that used to have 500 people in it. They're the last two. And they live there year round by themselves. And it's like they're the last two people on earth. I mean, they can't see another human being from where they are, even though they overlook this gigantic valley. And we just went and followed them around to see what their life is like. They just subsistence farm up there. And it's like, in a way, it's very idyllic. In a way, it's kind of sad, but it's beautiful, beautiful documentary. So I would encourage you to become a supporter over at chuckholton.com so that you can get that documentary. That's going to be available to supporters only over there, at least at first, until we've won a few awards in, we're going to put it into some film festivals and things like that. Okay, folks, I'm over time, but thank you very much for watching today. God bless you, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for Israel, and we'll see you again next time. Take care.